In today's video, I'm going to try and get this PlayStation 2 that I have here working again, which has not one but two faults. First, showing the teardown, so I can check out the first fault with the power, as it keeps turning itself off, and then attempt to repair it. Moving on to the second fault with the laser, and seeing if I can get this PS2 reading discs again. Will I succeed or will I fail? Let's find out together. So why am I fixing a PlayStation today? Well, truth be told, I have a bit of an addiction to buying faulty consoles whenever I see them cheap, like the stack you can see here. Let me know if you've got that same problem. But anyway, now that I've got quite a few PS2s here, I couldn't think of a better time to delve into the pile and show you my process on how I try to fix them. And just before we start, I just want to say a massive thanks to my Diamond tier Patreon members, David O'Reilly and CK with manual curly quotes. I hope you find where I've hidden your names in the video. So with all that said, let's get into fixing one of these PlayStations. Okay, from the bundle of PlayStations I bought, this is the PS2 Slim I've chosen to try and fix today. Firstly, the good news is that it does power on. The bad news though is that it no longer reads any disc, so there probably is an issue with the laser. And secondly, the power socket on the back that you can see here is problematic, even though if we take a closer look, there doesn't appear to be any visible damage. However, if I just plug this in to demonstrate, you can see that if I press the on button here, it does come straight on, but if I just wiggle the power connector even slightly, it turns straight back off again, which I suspect is being caused by a dry solder joint on the socket, which I do believe is a common issue with these PS2 Slims. So let's get it back on the bench and opened up to see if that is the case. Now, the good thing about these PS2 Slims is that they are fairly easy to open. The first thing I'm going to do is to remove these 6 covers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, to get to the screws underneath. And this one here does usually have a warranty sticker over it. So if I just grab another PlayStation to compare, you can see the sticker on here that should be on this one, but it has miraculously disappeared at some point in its life. And the tool I'm going to be using to remove the covers is this one here, although I'm not entirely sure what it's called. So if you know, then definitely let me know. But you've probably noticed that I am trying to keep my thumb over here and being careful, because these do have a tendency to ping off across the room, which obviously we don't want happening. And there is 2 different types of cover here. So there's 3 plastic ones at the top, and then there's 2 rubber ones, which I think are technically feet at the bottom, and then the middle one here is a plastic one as well. I'll just carry on removing these, and then this one seems to be a little bit stuck. There's always something that gets stuck, but I'll try and get it out, get my tool under there. Oh. Ah, this is very stuck. Right, get that in. There we go, we got it out, and the final one here. And now that these are all out, I'm going to unscrew the screws with my Phillips Head 1 screwdriver. So now that those screws are out, to open it up, we just need to flip the case over so that it's the right way up, and then I should just be able to lift the top of the case up like this. So now the top of the case is off. One thing to know is this metal plate. It came off with the top of the case for me. Normally though, you'd find it here. And it's worth noting it does need to be removed before the motherboard. And the next step for us to get a better look at that faulty power socket is for us to remove the motherboard, which is really easy as it's held into place with just this one screw that I'm going to remove now. And now that's out, we have just one more step before lifting out the board, and that is to disconnect the power switch you can see here. And to get this out, I know that you're supposed to pull up on this blue tab here. However, every time I've done that in the past, I've just ended up pulling the tab completely off. So maybe I am a little bit stronger than I look. But as we don't want that to happen today, instead I'm just gonna pull the power switch out like this and then pull up on the ribbon cable until it comes out. So now all that's left to do is to take out the board. And to do this, I prefer to lift it up from the back rather than the front, because as you can see here, if I try and lift it from the front, it tends to get caught on the controller ports. But if I lift it from the back, it comes straight out like this. Okay, now the board's out, we can finally see it here where the power socket is soldered on. And luckily we can see this without having to remove the RF shield or disassemble any further. And as I suspected, if I give the power socket a little wiggle forwards and backwards like this, you can definitely see where the solder is cracked. And I've always called this a dry solder joint. However, I have since learned others call them cold or even cracked solder joints. So definitely let me know in the comments what the correct term is. Anyway, in preparation for repairing this, I have found in my supplies some compatible power sockets, which I don't think I will need now, as it does just look like a dry joint. So rather than replace the socket, I think I'm just going to first try and resolder this one. And I probably could just reflow the solder to see if that works, but I do want to check if the pads are okay. So I'm going to remove the solder first and give it a good clean. So let's do that now. So it's off, and I will say, as desoldering goes, that socket did come off quite easily, although I did have to break out the solder sucker as one of the legs was too big for my desolderer. And pad-wise, after a little clean, I'm pleased to share that they all seem fine. It's just that sometimes with dry joints, the pad can become detached from the PCB, so it's always good to check before resoldering. Now all that's left to do is to get this resoldered so that we can finally give it a test. So let's do that now. Now that's soldered it back on, I'm pleased to show it no longer wobbles. So hopefully that has fixed it. But the best way to find out is by giving it a test. So just let me get this roughly reassembled so that we can give it a try. Okay, so I've just reassembled the PS2 without the screws, as I still need to fix the laser. So now I'm just gonna plug it in, ready for the moment of truth. Does it switch off if I give it a wiggle? So let's wiggle this. And no, it's not switching off, so I call that a success. Although I think if I keep on wiggling this, it's probably gonna break again. So I'm gonna stop that and let's move on to fixing the laser. But before we move on to looking at this laser, I can't think of a better time to introduce today's video sponsor, PCBWay, who have been making high quality PCBs now for over 10 years through their low cost, quick turnaround fabrication services, and have recently expanded their services to include injection molding, CNC machining, and 3D printing to help bring your projects to life. They also have a great community that I use a lot, full of retro projects that can be easily browsed and ordered. So if interested in finding out more, please check out the link to PCBWay.com down in the description below. Okay, to speed things up a bit, I've just gone ahead and removed the top of the case so that we can get a better look at what's going wrong with this laser. So if I just move back over to my test area on the bench and plug this in, I can demonstrate what's going wrong. Firstly, when I was testing these PlayStations for faults earlier, I only checked them with a couple of games that I now realise were all DVD ones. But I've since discovered after checking with a compact disc game, this laser does in fact still load CDs, which I'll quickly demonstrate. And to do that, you might be wondering, how do I get the disc to spin without the top of the case? Well, we just need to trick the PS2 into thinking that the lid is closed by holding down these two switches, and as if by magic, we now have a spinning disc. And if we give it a second or two, we should see the PlayStation logo. There it is. And this CD game load without any issues. So there we go, we have Ridge Racer there. But now if I just quickly swap this disc for a DVD one that I've got over here, you can see that it does spin as usual, even though it does sound a little odd. However, this time after waiting a short while, we don't get the logo, but get this error message. Please insert a PlayStation or PlayStation 2 format disc. Okay, I'm back at the bench with the PS2, so it's time to see if we can get this laser working again. Firstly, it is worth mentioning, before I tested those games, I did give the laser lens that you can see here a quick clean with a Q-tip and some IPA, as sometimes a simple clean like this is all that is needed to fix some reading issues. Obviously, that didn't work for this problem, so what I think I'm going to try and do next is to try and increase the power on the DVD laser. Now, to do that, I'll just show you quickly on this spare laser head, is to tweak just ever so slightly the necessary potentiometers that can be found here on the reverse, with one adjusting the CD and the other to adjust the DVD power. And if that fails, we can always go back to just replacing the head with one like I just showed, or the whole assembly like this one, but hopefully it doesn't come to that. Now, the first thing I need to do to get to this DVD potentiometer is to remove this laser assembly, which is held into place with these 4 screws you can see here. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 3 cables that carefully need removing, with the first one located here, the second one located up here, and a third one that, even though it's connected here, you can leave this part plugged in, as it only needs to be disconnected from the connector that's currently hidden under this laser head. So I'm going to do that now, and I'll be back when it's done. Now it's out, it's time to tweak that laser. So I've got my multimeter out here on my bench, which I've already set to ohms, and from which we can find out the current value of the DVD potentiometer. And like I mentioned earlier, on the reverse of the board, there are 2 potentiometers, one for adjusting the CD power, which is labelled here, and the other for the DVD, which is again labelled over here. So to find out the reading for the DVD one, it is a bit fiddly to do, but you just need to place the multimeter probes, the thinner the better, on the potentiometer, as you can see here. And this is the part where I kind of wish I did have 3 hands. As you can see, I'm trying to hold both probes with the one so that I can grab my flathead screwdriver with the other hand. And I'm just going to insert this in there and turn it very slightly, and I am being very gentle with this, as it does have a tendency to just shoot up in value when I don't want it to, with the slightest movement. But if I place that in there, I should be able, yeah, there we go. As soon as I started twisting it, then it went well beyond what I want, but I'll try and Move it back a little bit. So now that that's done, let's get this laser assembly back in the case so that we can give it a test. Okay, I've plugged it all back in. So now it is time for the moment of truth. Will it work? So I'm just pressing down on those switches again. And I will say it definitely sounds better. So it does sound like the laser isn't struggling as much as it was. But yeah, it's bad news here. It's still not working. So what I think I'm gonna do is to go and give it another tweak off camera. So I'll be back when that's done to test again. And now, with the magic of video editing, I'm back straight away and I've just reassembled everything again after giving the laser another tweak. So let's get it plugged in like this. Pop the disc back in and we can give it another test. Okay, this time it does look promising as we have the PlayStation logo, and I will say it certainly sounds a lot better. And wow, amazing, it's loaded into the memory card screen. So it definitely looks like boosting that laser just a little bit has worked. So yeah, really pleased that such a simple process got this one working again. There you go, one fixed PlayStation with some relatively easy fixes. As you can see in the background, it's all reassembled, and I can confirm I've tested it with quite a few games, a controller and memory card, and all seems great. Even got carried away playing one of my favourite PS2 games, Twisted Metal Black. It's one of those that once I start playing, I can't stop. So definitely let me know in the comments what your go-to PS2 games were, as I'm always looking to check new ones out. Also, as to the repair, it's worth noting if the laser had failed on this one, I probably would have gone with plan B and just replaced the head. And with these new heads, it's always a good practice to check and adjust, like I've just shown if needed, the ohms on both the DVD and CD before installing, as sometimes they come supplied out of range. Plus, look out for the anti-static solder blob on these new heads that I'll show on the screen now. As if it has one and you don't desolder, they won't work, which has caught me out in the past. Anyway, like I say in my description, I'm not an expert, this is just my hobby. So always do your own research before doing any repairs yourself. And finally, for those not aware, I quietly switched on YouTube channel memberships. It's early days, but I've personally designed these retro themed emojis that members can use in replies. So definitely let me know what you think of them and other designs you think I should add, as apparently I can add more the more members that join. Also, I just wanted to say a big thank you to all of my Patreon supporters, new and old, including both silver and the following gold tier members: Banesh Banerjee, Matty HP and Peter Broderson, whose names you can see here on the screen for the extra support. It really is appreciated. And lastly, by popular request, I've set up a Buy Me a Coffee that you can find a link to in the description. Again, everyone's support really is appreciated. But that's all for today. I'm now off to play some more Twisted Metal, so see you next time.